Let's give it up for Amrit.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? Yeah. Awesome, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm a product manager at Square. I run a couple of products there, the process of $1 billion in volume. How many of you have used Square or interacted with Square at any point of your life? Wow, awesome. I would have asked the same question 5 years ago. How many other point-of-sale companies do you know, or payments companies do you know? The difference is pretty apparent of how Square has changed the entire industry. So one of the two big reasons why I love working in product, number one is impact. So we're all very deep into our skills. Some of you are engineers, some of you are salespeople, some of you are in marketing. But the product management, the breadth of experience and how much of an impact you can make to a problem is tremendous. So one big reason I love working in it is you can really move the needle on what you can do. And number two, the people. Every single person I meet, and whether it's customers all the way from San Francisco, a nice coffee shop here, or a seller in Kenya that I used to work in before, or a single mom trying to run a small business in Florida. The people I meet are incredible and trying to do amazing things in their life. So that's by far the most inspiring reason why I'm in product management. So to give you a little background how I broke into product management, grew up in a small town in India. A small town in India is about 4 million people. So it's very, very small there. Grew up in a small town there. I'm a chemical engineer by degree, and now I work in fintech. How that connects is I do not understand how I got here. So I'll give you a small story on it. So grew up there, went to college in India, and after undergrad ended up moving to Africa to work at a small startup that was 6 people, essentially the size of this room, in a small room. Why Africa? Africa is by far the most exciting place in the world to do mobile payments, even if you go today. So 30% of Kenya's GDP moves on cell phones. So you can essentially text money to each other on a $10 Nokia phone. Anybody remember the Nokia 3315? Yep. Or Nokia 3310? No? Are we all millennials here? Probably we skipped over a generation. So if you go to India or Africa, the most common cell phones did not have color screens. They had really basic $10 phone you could buy off the rack. And countries like Kenya or Indonesia or India very recently have skipped over a generation and gone straight to a mobile-based financial system that there's no bank account required. It's all on your cell phone, and you can simply move money by texting it to each other. So I joined a startup out of college. I was trying to help people send money to each other using cell phones. Did that for 2-3 years, grew that company from small 6-person team to 50 people in 6 countries now. As a part of that growth, moved to the US, and then now I work at Square, where I run a couple of products. If you've seen the Square Register, where you go to Phil's Coffee. How many of you like Phil's Coffee? Blue bottle coffee? Anybody? Yeah, so the white register that you see, where you can swipe a card and sign on the screen. I run parts of that product and a couple of other products there. So I won't take a lot of time talking about myself. I'll kind of open it up to AMA, ask whatever you want, and we'll keep it candid. I'm not going to stand here. We'll walk around, and Carlos will start the mic.
Raise your hand and pass the mic, and then we will.
Perfect. Awesome.
Cool. So first question is, I was hoping, let me start with you, and then we'll pass the mic.
Thanks. Hey, Amrit, Paul here. I work in data analytics, basically. So the question is, what are like some concrete tasks that you do as a product manager?
Sure. The product manager, by definition, is the worst defined profession in technology. It can mean literally anything within one company. It could be 5 different things in one company, let alone between different companies. So the way I define product manager, and in one sentence, product managers find valuable problems to solve, and then they solve them. And each word means something very specific. Find, you are responsible for discovering new problems. Valuable, you must find valuable things, not trivial, that are fun ideas, shiny objects. To solve, and go solve them. So not only are you responsible for finding valuable problems, but also working with the subject matter experts, so engineers, designers, marketers, executives, CEOs, to go ahead and take that solution to market. So concrete things you can divide all the way up to customer discovery. So spending time with customers, leaving the building, talking to people, seeing how they use a particular problem. Let's say financial services, for example. So if I'm trying to build, let's say, a new credit card for millennials, I would actually go and spend time. I'm not building it exactly, but I'll go and spend time with millennials, see what their credit card habits are, how do they actually spend money, how do they manage their flow. So really spending time with the customer and then distilling that out into specific insights that we can build a solution towards. So that's number one. Number two, looking at the bigger picture. What game are we playing as a company, whether it's at a current company or any other company that you may be working at? What is the broader strategy? Who are our competitors? What does winning or losing mean for us? So defining that product strategy for that company. That's kind of the bigger picture goal. And then breaking that problem down into its constituent parts, designing it, building it with engineering, and then taking it to market. So I don't think in terms of days, I think about 2-week chunks. My partner often jokes that I talk in bullet points at home. Thing number one, thing number two. So a lot of like decomposing big nebulous problems into solutions and then taking them to market. Does that answer your question?
Hi, my name is Scott. I'm actually head of product at my company.
Awesome.
FinTech 6 as well.
Awesome.
How would you define the difference from a PMing standpoint between strategy and where you want the product to go versus tactics, how you're going to get there?
Great question. And something most PMs, and I struggled with early days of time. So a great tension in product management is the context switching. And by that, mean that product managers are visionaries, but also mixed with tacticians. So that means you can look out 2 years, say, hey, if I meet Jack in an elevator and he asks me, what's your vision out 2 years from now? I should be able to crystally define that, but I should also be able to go to an engineer and say, hey, this is exactly the feature we're going to build to get there. So your vision is not just 2 years, but also 2 weeks, right? So you're really looking at this context switching work that all PMs have to do. You can zoom into a problem, you can be a magnifying glass, but you can also be a telescope, looking really far. So how do you actually manage that? How do you keep that balance? Very specifically, I like having very story-oriented long-term goals where we're looking at product strategy. Hey, this particular product, we want this to be here in 2 years, and that could be either hitting a revenue goal or either saying this is what the product could become. So I'll give you an example of my previous company, Coco in Africa, back in Kenya, where we started with just payments. It was just about helping small Kenyan entrepreneurs take mobile payments and send money to each other. But eventually it would end up becoming a way to run your entire business, where you not only can you accept payments, but you can run advanced loyalty or get access to
That's fine.
or get access to finance. Or get access to finance, or start a new business with that platform. So that's where you get very long-term visions that are not achievable in any short term. So keeping that in a deck or a vision doc. Then breaking it down into a medium term where you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 3 months out, where you're very tactical, low fidelity, medium fidelity, but something that's more achievable. And then there's the foundational stuff that you have to do every 2 or 3 weeks. So 3 big buckets: foundational, achievable, and aspirational. It's how I would break down a vision into a set of tactics. Does that answer your question?
Very well, thank you.
Awesome. More questions?
Maybe bring them.
Hi, I'm an entrepreneur and I have a big problem every day. It's building a product, which is what you do obviously.
Yep.
But how do you answer to the challenge to get the traction to the product? And obviously Square has traction already, but how do you work with marketing or people taking care of hacking the market to bring traction on the product?
Got it. So your question is, how do you get traction in an existing product or a new product? New product. Okay. And you're specifically asking about kind of growth hackers and things like that, right? Okay. Yeah, there's a culture of growth hackers, a recent title that came around. How many of you know what growth hackers are or have heard the term before? Okay. Cool. So it's kind of classic Silicon Valley where we brought the ethos of a hacker, which was like move fast and break things, of a technologist, and then put it into essentially a marketing role where you're doing the marketing function but with an ethos of an engineer, right? So before we go into growth hacking, if you grow something that's not positive, it's called a cancer. So it's literally the same thing. It's the same DNA that's responsible for your growing your body and giving you muscles. If it grows out of control, it becomes a cancer. That's literally what it is. I kind of see this product the same way. If you start growing a product before you actually know what you're selling, great way to burn money, great way to dissipate your team. Same for international expansion. So before going for traction, let's look at kind of product market fit, what it's called. Yeah, there are people who are viably going to pay for a particular product or service. And the best way to find product market fit is to actually leave the building, look at your customer base. So let's say you're trying to build a self-driving car company. 5 years from now, I'm sure some of you in the room will be building a self-driving car company. So for that to get traction, I would encourage you to go out in the market and spend time of how a particular rider will interact with a car where there is no driver. What do their surroundings look like? So not specifically just your product, but the circumstances surrounding your problem. And spend time really empathizing with your user or a buyer or a seller who will use your product, and think of how will you optimize for conditions around it. And that's where kind of most of the magic moments are. If you've heard of Clayton Christensen's format where it's called jobs to be done. Has anybody heard of that? No? Okay, I'll tell you the story. It's a fun story. So Clayton Christensen, father of the disruption theory, he talks about, he was a consultant. So a big fast food chain, McDonald's, hired Clayton Christensen to say, hey, our milkshake sales have completely stopped. And we've tried adding more flavors. We used to be chocolate and strawberry. Now we added, kale flavored smoothies. And then we added healthy options. And then we added 15 different flavors. And the sales are not going up. What's going on? What would you do in this situation? If you were the consultant who McDonald's is asking, I want to grow my milkshake sales, what would you do?
Ask the customers.
Ask the customers.
Say it again? Spend it on marketing. So put more money, put more places where customers can see the flavors of milkshake.
No.
Talk to the users. That's one approach. What else?
Copy Dairy Queen.
Sorry?
Dairy Queen.
Okay, so copy more competitors. So all those approaches were considered, but the most valuable insight that you could find is Clayton's team went out and spent time standing at a McDonald's, say, hey, how are customers actually buying this product? So it turns out, I'll ask you to have a guess. At what time during the day does McDonald's sell the most number of milkshake?
3 o'clock.
So 3 in the afternoon. Any more guesses?
6.
In the morning? Midnight? Mornings and evenings? Lunch? The correct answer is it's all the commute hours. So 7 to 9 is 90% of McDonald's milkshakes. So who the hell in the world is buying a 1,000-calorie milkshake at 7 a.m. in the morning? Turns out that all the people who commute from suburbs to cities to go do their work. Now and the terminology he uses is that the job that any customer is hiring a product to do is really specific to that circumstance. So when you look at somebody who's commuting from a suburb to a city, the alternatives for the job to be done, which is to commute, is a bagel. It's a power energy bar, very, very common thing. And none of them really fit the act of driving. You can't eat a bagel while driving. You have to put all your the cream cheese while driving. You have to or drive the steering with your elbows. Energy bars will give you a sugar high, and you don't really feel full. And the reason why those folks were buying milkshakes is the milkshake is self-contained, doesn't cause a mess, and it doesn't end in an instant. You can like sip on it for the 1 hour commute. And the job they're really trying to do is I don't want my commute to be boring. I want it to be interesting. So I want something to like keep me busy, keep my mind not getting numb. So the idea that McDonald's pursued that instead of adding more flavors, we should make that experience of having a milkshake more interesting, which gives added chunks of other flavors that you could kind of surprise you in the milkshake. So great example of how really you have to study the circumstance around your product and not just your product to get traction. And then once you have the traction, once you're really fulfilling a need that your customers are willing to pay for or some other model, then you double down on marketing or exporting in more places. So does that make sense? That was a long answer. Yeah?
Hi. How do you work with other product managers at Square so that you're not stepping on each other's toes, but you're also helping to build something greater than the sum of its parts?
Very interesting question. Yeah, and a tough one to answer. So can't speak about Square, of course. So I'll zoom out and talk broadly about how product managers are arranged. So a couple of ways to arrange product teams. I refer to the Apple and the Amazon model. So Apple's model is very functional. Apple has one VP of design, one VP of product, one VP of engineering, and they all all PMs report to that function. So if you are CEO of Apple and you're going to build a self-driving car tomorrow, you can essentially orient the entire organization to like work on one problem, which is the entirety of the company is not going to work on self-driving car. Great. That model breaks down when you have more than one products. So the other model is Amazon, where every single PM is responsible for one part of the giant Amazon ecosystem. So anybody use Amazon Subscribe and Save here? How many of you have Amazon Prime? Sure. Wow. Yeah. So Amazon Prime has one PM who wakes up thinking about Amazon Prime. That's all they do. And in that case, you're essentially looking at a divisional approach as opposed to a functional approach. And most companies, as they grow out of size, as startups have more than one product, they split it into divisions where each PM is essentially responsible for their own piece of the puzzle, where they're looking at one problem, thinking about it. Everybody has their own competition, so companies like Square, Amazon, they don't really have one competitor. Each product there has its own competitive landscape, right? Anyway, long story short, how do you coordinate between other product managers so you're not stepping on each other's toes? So number one, stepping on each other's toes doesn't really happen that often because you're handling very disparate, non-overlapping problems. However, wherever there is opportunity for consolidation or cooperation, we do work with PMs to essentially start with the customer, like really look at our customers hiring us for the same job. And if the jobs are similar, we don't want to create 2 or 3 different solutions just because they're in different teams. So a great way to kind of break that down is to look at the customer and not your organizational chart. And if you can do that, it really helps kind of clear things up and the organizational boundaries blur, and you can kind of empathize with the customer and say, hey, we probably shouldn't build 3 different products for one problem. So that's how we break it. Does that make sense? Awesome.
Hey, my name is Brandon. I'm also a product manager in the fintech industry. As you mentioned many times about getting to know your customers, getting to know your product's market fit.
Yep.
Take Square, for example. I think I'm assuming the majority of the customers and users of Square, SMB, merchants,
yep.
mom and pop shops.
Yep.
What is the most effective way to find out that to really understand their needs? Because I think every merchant has different business process, different payment needs.
Mm-hmm.
How do you consolidate and segment your customers so that you don't build a product that serves everyone has too much customizations? How do you control the core product versus the customizations?
Sure, great question. A dilemma that every PM running on a substantial business runs into. So a product that works for everyone works on no one. The biggest mistakes most PMs will do, I've done this, my company is trying to build a product that you're targeting to everyone. It basically means you haven't studied your customer. It's kind of like a lowest common denominator where you build something that everybody sort of hates and nobody really loves, right? So I think the right approach, an exact approach, is you start with a small base of passionate folks who are willing to use and hopefully pay for the feature that you're building and expand from there, right? And you see the similar thesis pan out with multiple companies. You start with Facebook, right? Started with a group of people who already had a social bond, graduates at Harvard. They found what inspires people to connect each other digitally, and then they blew that up slowly to more universities, more states, more countries, maybe someday more planets in terms of Facebook. So very similar trajectory where we start with one thing that we do really, really well, and then expanding the scope while keeping the core experience really, really simple for people who are not complex. Sometimes you run into problems where if you're doing something very, very complex for, let's say, what works for a local coffee shop doing farmer's market, selling coffee in a farmer's market, and then you go to something as big as a Nordstrom, their requirements are very, very different. Often you will see products become so mature that they have to be spun off into their own thing. A good example, again, is Amazon. Amazon and Amazon Fresh. How many of you use Amazon Fresh and Amazon? Yeah, so Amazon Fresh is a very different core experience from buying just from Amazon. So they essentially took that application and spun it out into something else because it was too complicated for the common Amazon user. And so the only way to do that is to spin off something else. So yeah, so to sum up, you start with something small, you grow it big, and then ultimately it becomes so big, it'll spin out into its own thing when it becomes complex.
Customer feedbacks.
So customer feedback, in terms of tactical, a few channels to get it. The richest one is, so I was classified as two kind of listening posts. And the job of the PM is essentially we get paid to listen, not speak. And two big ways to do it. One is qualitative, one is quantitative. Qualitative feedback is, of course, the richest in its fidelity, and you end up spending time schedule interviews and structure those interviews, talk to people, see what they're doing, and their best practices to follow. A good book you can all read is Talking to Humans. Really good guide to get started on how to interview people without leading them on or trying to sell them something. So that's number one. And number two is quantitative data. So looking at how are people behaving with your product in ways that you see. And often data is an invitation to investigate more because data tells you a pattern. It doesn't tell you the story. It will give you certain patterns to investigate, which often ends up leading to more qualitative research. Does that answer your question?
Hi, it's Mark.
Yes.
We were talking about strategy, but my question is more towards getting things done. So as a product manager, actually I have a bunch of questions, I'm sorry for that, in advance. So how do you get the work done? As in, you have a strategy, you have a product to build. Now, how are you trying to get it done? Which processes would you follow? Like, for example, if you happen to follow Agile, are you following a certain type of Agile?
Right.
And then the final question is, I mean, why I'm coming forth with that question is you talked about having a futuristic vision and a current vision. So I'm concerned more about you have everything planned out for you,
Yep.
and you want to get things done with the engineers,
Yep.
right? So the processes, the Agile processes, and
Sure.
in Agile Scrum, there's a very important person called product owner.
Yep.
And how does it distinguish from the product manager?
Correct. Yep. So there's quite a bit there. So let's unpack that. Number one, how do we break down strategy to tactics? So yes, there is always a tension between being too strategic, in which case you're just somebody who says a lot of things and then gets nothing done, right? You see a lot of folks, especially in big companies. And then on the other end, you are so much of a tactician that you're really just a project manager, and your work doesn't connect to a higher purpose or towards a goal that everybody can kind of get along with and feel inspired by. So there's always that tension that you have to manage. And either way, you go swing too far to anyone, and it's a disaster. Second question, how do we manage Agile Scrum? So my attitude to Agile is not religious, so I like being Agile and not doing Agile. Two very different things. Agile is kind of where the process becomes an outcome in itself. I think those are bad reasons to be motivated by it. What you really want is you want a team that can run very, very cheaply, can learn as quickly as possible at the lowest cost possible, and can change direction with the new things, right? When new things come over, you're not on a path that is going to head to failure, right? So Jeff Bezos has this saying that intelligent people change their mind a lot without causing a lot of chaos.
No 2 weeks sprints, no.
I'll come to that. So we actually do 2-week sprints. We don't call it Agile. It's a sprint, and we run 2-week sprints, kind of classic, what would traditionally be Agile. We don't obsess over the ceremonies of Agile, where you have to, like we do our sprint planning, we do retros, and we do backlog grooming, but I don't want to follow clause 13, section 2 of Agile Scrum Manifesto. The operation is not the goal. The goal is the team is running fast, is delivering value to customers, and it's feeling empowered. It's feeling empowered that it's doing things. So coming to specifics of how I do things and how I've done things. Again, can't speak for Square. I like, for the goal with engineering for me is essentially to create predictability. If our engineering team and design team, they're extremely good and talented, if they can see out 2 weeks and 6 weeks in advance and have a fairly good understanding of what the long-term vision is, my job is essentially 80% done. If the team is feeling great, I have a bunch of great experts who do this, and I'll work with them collaboratively to do so. So breaking down the vision into 6-week plans and 2-week sprints, giving them insight into the problem and the solution very, very early, so nobody is a stranger to the problem, and they don't say, hey, here's something, go build. So it's not a servitude or top-down relationship, it's very, very collaborative. So bringing them really, really early into the problem and saying, hey, you're finding this new insight, what do you think we should do? Here's a couple of ideas. So it's also a great place for their creativity to flourish. So if we do that super early, kind of writing a PRD, giving more detail. Thereon, we break the problem down into what's traditionally called stories or tasks, and we essentially have all the mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive tasks that essentially add up to a feature. And then we build it over time, we test it out, we release it, we talk about it, we market it, and the cycle goes on. Does that give you enough detail?
Just one question on that. So you have the whole project brought down 10 chunks.
Yep.
You make all the PRDs and everything in
I
it.
do. Yes.
As you go.
Yes, I do. So yeah, it's a good combination of being very tactical and very, very detail-oriented and keeping the team predictable and knowing exactly what you're trying to build, while connecting the dots, saying, okay, this small feature eventually adds up to our 2-year goal. And one exercise that works really well is placing your small tasks into themes, so like buckets of things that connect to a higher purpose. Because otherwise there's like a level mismatch where you're saying, oh, we're going to change the way business is done in 2 years, but now you're adding a button to a screen. How does that add up? So there's like a middle level somewhere where you're kind of categorizing those things into themes that add up to something else. Does that make sense? Awesome.
So the last question, product owner and product manager.
Oh, right, yes. Completely cultural. Where I've worked before, product manager and product owners are generally the same. In more complex big companies where product managers are supposed to be more towards the market or the business or the customer, and there's a specific person who runs the engineering and design team. So you've essentially separated out the problem and the solution. Like there's a problem finder, and then there's a solution builder. Not a very fun place there's some people who really enjoy just being the solution builder, but I like the full stack, kind of end-to-end ownership of not only do you solve the problem, you make sure it also gets done. Yeah.
Hi, so this is a question for people who are interested in gradually becoming a product manager or pivot into one.
Yep.
So for people who have zero background, what are the first few steps that you suggest, like us to go into? Like, is it taking a courses? Is a certificate necessary, or should I go through like a certain position and then pivot into product manager? My name is Connie, by the way, and I'm a fresh grad. That's the question.
Welcome. Yeah, good question. And if you had several answers, depending on where you're coming from. So definitely courses can help to kind of formalize and give you frameworks to think. But ultimately, the characteristic you want to cultivate the most, this sounds very hand-wavy. You want to be curious, as curious as a person as possible. And that nobody needs to give you a certificate or a degree or an education for that, right? You can be curious independently, right? So being curious about people, being curious about problems, kind of one meta trait that I see amongst all good product managers, because that is essentially when I started in product management I was doing all sorts of things. I joined the company with 6 people. I would do engineering, I would do marketing, I would talk to people, and it turns out that's the amalgamation of all those traits. But ultimately, I was beginning to question why. Why does this matter? Why does this matter that we're building this feature? Why does this matter that we're publishing this new article in a newspaper? Which ultimately connected to the purpose of the company, right? So being curious, I think, is one trait we can cultivate individually. Nobody needs to give us permission for that, right? The other one, how to enter into product management, is more tactical, and I see people from all sorts of backgrounds. People who come from, let's say, data analytics, people who have analyzed problems for a very long time and said, hey, this is how a business is doing, this is how a product is doing. But they've always felt the eagerness and curiosity to actually go and solve that problem, in which case they went from just generating insights to actually solving the problem and understanding the business. So that's one entry point. The other one is sales or customer support. A lot of customer support folks over time end up becoming product managers because they're talking to customers. They understand, not only am I going to answer support calls, but someday I'm actually going to build things that solve these customers' problems. They're coming from a very advantageous place. The other place is marketing, where you're looking at the market landscape and competitive landscape and pricing and the entire industry. Another good entry point. So you can enter from all sorts of backgrounds. What I think it really matters is an understanding of the bigger picture and asking why, and displaying that curiosity.
But the first few steps are like the skills required, though.
Yes, specific skills you could cultivate there. Number one, writing. I think writing is by far the most important skill a PM can have, or speaking as an analog. As a PM, you'll end up writing a lot, everything from strategy docs to PRDs, that essentially developing the ability to convince people to do things for you, even especially when you're not in a position of authority. Like, I don't get to tell anyone, hey, go do this thing. How many of you have heard the saying, PM is the CEO of the product? That is wrong. That is completely incorrect. PMs are not the CEO of the product. They're responsible if something goes wrong, but if something goes right, everybody else gets the credit. So CEO, it's the CEO without the benefits of being a CEO. So yeah, being able to convince people and persuade people, I think, is a good skill. So writing could be a good skill. Analyzing, developing these sorts of empathy where you can literally go into like any environment and talk to people could be another one. And number 3, I think, just some understanding of technology. So playing around with new tools that it could be anything from, I'm sure some of you use Tinder. How many of you use Tinder? Okay, it's personal question. Personal question. Try essentially dissecting Tinder and see how does the technology behind Tinder work. What happens? Sit with an engineer friend and see, hey, what's happening when I'm swiping right? Like, what happens in the background? Or look at Uber. What happens when I'm calling a cab? Imagine the flow of information and things like that. So again, very kind of maker's spirit of finding the new shiny toy you're my dad would buy me, as a kid, the first thing I would do is to take it apart completely to see what's inside it. So the digital analog of that could really help. Yeah, but writing above all, above everything, I would say writing.
Hi, my name is June and I do data.
Welcome.
My question is, can you walk us through the high-level story of a fun, complex problem you had at Square, and walk us through like the full cycle, problem identifying to solution that you came up with it?
Sure. I can't talk about Square, but I'll talk about previous companies, similar problem. Yeah. So imagine you're in Kenya, and imagine you're a small business in Kenya selling bananas and fruit in a kiosk. So if you've seen, if you've been on 24th Street Mission, you see certain Mexican bodegas who sell essentially very similar setting. So imagine you're a Kenyan seller who just started their first grocery store, and somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I don't carry cash. I want to buy this bunch of bananas. I don't carry cash, and the only thing I have is M-Pesa, which is their mobile wallet, where you can text money to each other." So this is a real story. We are standing there, saw somebody come in and say, "Hey, don't have cash, don't carry cash because it's very risky, not very safe to carry cash at night, and most of the salary that I receive comes from a mobile wallet anyway." What happens? I said, "Hey, don't worry, you can pay me via M-Pesa," and the customer says, "Okay, what's your personal phone number?" And the person who owns the store says, "Hey, my phone number is 7123456." And there we saw that literally a business, somebody who doesn't even own the business, who's just selling, person at the counter, is receiving money from their customer into their personal wallet, and the business owner has no idea this is happening. No idea. So literally imagine if you went to a coffee shop and said, "Hey, how should I pay for coffee?" The coffee barista said, "You can just Venmo me on my personal account." So that was really what was happening. And we look at that and said, "Hey, there's tremendous money in people's wallets. Literally 30% of Kenya's GDP is stored digitally in a cell phone. And there is no way for businesses to accept that formally. There's a ton of cash leakage, employees stealing from business owners. What can we do there?" And we came up with the first product, which is called Pay with M-Pesa, where instead of paying to an employee's personal wallet, you could pay that store. So instead of swiping a card, sending money to somebody's Venmo, you could send money to Blue Bottle Coffee. And it was a huge, huge deal for big businesses, where they said, "This is great, all my money comes in, it comes to my bank account next day, I don't have to worry about leakage." So that's one example. The other one is, and this is a more humbling example, is after that product launched for 2 years, we would go and interview people and say, "Hey, how is this working out?" And their response was always, "Yeah, it's nice. It's not like changing anything. I've moved some cash to digital money, and all that's nice. It's okay. It's not changing my life in any way." And turns out the biggest problem for small businesses globally, not just Africa, is access to finance. Is that if I want to add a new store, if I want to get more employees, or if I want to buy more alcohol so I can sell more of it on a weekend when there's a big football game. Turns out that's much bigger a problem, much more fundamental as a business. So we said, what can we do there? And turns out we have a ton of access to data for the sellers, because we're literally looking at all the transactions that were coming through that business digitally and said, "Hey, can we loan against this?" So we started a small pilot, 2 loans worth $1,000 each to one bar in Kenya and one grocery store. And we essentially underwrote it from our company's account, saying we are going to give these loans out to 2 people, keep it very quiet, and they will pay back automatically. We'll just take out, let's say, 10% of their whatever they're receiving through their cards or their cell phone. And that product is now by far the biggest profit driver for the company. So classic example of like spending time with the customers and really seeing that. Because if you were looking at just making the best payment product for that business, you would have missed the boat and completely missed the bigger picture. The question is not what is the best product that I built for you. It's like, what is the problem that I can solve beyond this? You see this everywhere. Amazon started with books. Now there's furniture delivery. Who could imagine? Now there's drone delivery today. So yeah, does that give you a good picture? Awesome. All right.
Hi. My question is, how important do you think for a product manager to know the codes, let's say for how the codes, just the software architecture or
Sure.
the models of how the software was built?
Sure.
And the reason I'm asking this question is because who do you think is actually better suited as a product manager if somebody wants to pivot? Is it a SME or is it, let's say, a software engineer?
What do you mean by SME?
Subject matter expert.
Okay. I think of small and medium enterprises. I think of that. Yeah, good question. If you zoom out and see what characteristic you want to see in a PM technically, it's not the verbatim code, it's understanding of technology and how technology can work. And ultimately you're in a relationship with engineers, designers, subject matter experts, and you have to bring something substantial to the table. So you can't just be herding sheep. If you're simply organizing their work and you are essentially a replaceable layer, that's where PMs have no leverage and no strength. So ultimately you want to bring something that is individual and personal and something that you're very good at. It could be anything from disciplines. It could be you're a visionary, or you're a very good execution-based product manager, you have great technical skill, like you can write code, you can understand technology. So ultimately you want to bring something that's indispensable to the table of subject matter experts. To a specific question, how much of code do you need to know? Not a lot. I don't code. I cannot write a single line of code. I can write SQL and do data analysis, but ultimately I understand how technology works and what are the trade-offs of particular decisions. And so if there's a particular thing you're trying to build, there are several routes to that solution. On a high level, I'm able to assess which path will take more or not. So that's one tactic, is to kind of get better over time. The other one is to essentially create a system of trust where you have a partner in technology who you trust and who trusts you with finding valuable problems and having some sense of representation of their views, and then essentially asking them for details. If you're so I run into this all the time where I can create the higher level estimate, but really deep in the weeds of engineering and speed and technical decisions, I need to consult my engineering partner. So don't need to write code, but definitely to understand how technology works and what are the trade-offs of particular decisions. I will bring it down to the point I just made, that good practice to dissect current applications you use. Imagine how you would explain it to your mother or your father how this technology works. So being able to dissect that and break it down is a super helpful skill. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Hey. Hi, I'm Jasmine and I'm a product manager for Weight Watchers, and we're going through this transformational period where we were a brick and mortar company and now we're a tech company.
Right.
And we talk a lot about solving problems, but we don't really have a good framework in place for doing that, so I wanted to get your opinion on what's a good framework to define that problem and define whether it's worth pursuing. And then I have a second question after you've done that. You want? Okay. Yeah. The second question is, when you said in your example that, about verticals within Amazon, that they don't step on each other's toes.
Yep.
But when you do, what is a good way to manage those dependencies?
Sure. Yep. Great questions. So the first question was, what is a good framework for pursuing new opportunities and justifying the value of each, right? There's several. I really like the jobs to be done framework, now used by Airbnb and a couple of cutting-edge companies. It's been around. I highly recommend the book Competing Against Luck, where by Clayton Christensen, a great book to read. So jobs to be done puts in perspective of, okay, what insights are you trying to generate, and that's very, very specific and tactical, right? So that's more of a tactical thing. For the strategic thing, the classic kind of business school 101 TAM analysis of what is your total addressable market and how much can you capture for it. So whatever industry you're operating in, whether let's say I'm a PM for Uber, my addressable opportunity is kind of the entire transportation industry, not just taxi cabs, and so really expanding the opportunity to that. And viewing problems from that lens really helps. Also, this creates big goals that people can be excited about, even if it's not pure science, right? So the TAM sizing and sizing an opportunity really works. Other frameworks, kind of classic SWOT analysis that you could do, where you're looking at any opportunity that you're pursuing, look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So that really works. And the last one is the business model canvas by Alexander Oswalder, I believe that's his name. Where you're essentially, every time you create a new idea, you're looking at every single critical component. So competitive landscape, how will you take it to market, what is your solution, what is your unfair advantage. So building that canvas for a new idea really puts the problem in a bigger perspective. So business model canvas, jobs to be done, TAM, or SWOT analysis. Your second question was about avoiding conflict when you do step on other people's toes.
Yeah, managing dependencies really, like when you do have, if you want to create something that's bigger than just your vertical, what's a good way to, I guess, align across teams?
Right. Yes, some of these are more proactive and some of them are reactive. I'll answer the proactive part because it's a little more predictable. So when you know those dependencies are going to arise anyway, you essentially involve them super early on, where you're, before you even embark on building a solution, you're going to talk to them and show them your plan and vision and see how can you resolve them. And those are easy to manage. The reactive ones are a little more difficult, when you suddenly realize, hey, here's a dependency I didn't even anticipate, right? And in which case, it's mostly about kind of people and relationships. We're looking at how can we both move forward? Is there a particular outcome that we can, that both of us can kind of come out positively with? And there's really a right answer in the second part. Cool. Awesome. All right.
Hi, my name is Juna. I'm a student from the University of Waterloo here. And I also actually interned as PM at Tinder. Yeah, amazing company. So I was just wondering, when you're hiring PMs, what are the top things that you look for? Whether skills or things in their background, character. You mentioned curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So are you looking for more kind of character attributes or more kind of functional attributes? Or I can answer. Okay. Yeah, so if I were to create a new process for hiring PMs, I would start at day zero. I would start with customer empathy, being able to leave the building, roll up your sleeves, talk to people. By far the most important skill that you could have. So customer empathy is super, super important. I'll look at their strategic thinking. Can they zoom out of details and look at the bigger picture and ask why, like 5 times? See, why does this matter? Why does this matter that we have an app called Tinder? Why does this matter we have Uber? Who cares? So kind of strategic thinking, very important. Analytical thinking, are they able to distill a very complex problem and look at all possible root causes and act on that? So being super analytical, where something as nebulous as, hey, should we build Uber Pool after we built Uber X, and what does it take to do so? So being able to break that down. And then the one functional parts of having some understanding of how technology works and having an eye for design, where you're really able to understand the customer and how they interact with other products. You have the cultural awareness that each country, each region, each demographic does not use the product in the same way. So if I'm launching a product in California, it'll look, feel, work very differently if I'm doing it in Africa. Very, very different value systems of people, how they use the product. So yeah, to summarize, customer empathy, analytical mind, strategy, design, engineering. Yes?
Hey, going back to your example of the loan product that you guys created.
Yep.
When you guys decided to implement it, you guys had an option of improving your existing product or growing to a new area.
Yep.
Along those lines, I have kind of 2 questions. What did you take into account, or like, what do you look at when you decide to take such a big risk, whereas as opposed to spending time improving what you already have?
Yep.
And then when, as a product manager, some companies have a growth PM and something now grow again. In your eyes or in your experience, what are the differences in the two roles? What kind of are different characteristics?
Correct. So those questions really connected very well. So let's try to summarize both of them together. So when we were deciding whether to pursue perfecting and polishing an existing product and adding more smaller things versus taking a big jump, yeah, it's kind of a mindset in a way that once you hit product market fit, which we had with our initial payment acceptance product in Kenya, the returns of that are eventually going to slow down, right? You build something, people loved it, it grew over time, and then it slowly started flattening, so you're not adding more value. So there's value in kind of polishing it and making it easier to use and retaining people so at least they're not leaving your product, right? And hopefully doing that. So that's number one. You can continue on that. And number two, when we're taking a big risk, you're actually protecting against a lot of downsides. So we didn't decide to say, hey, we're going to lend $1 million tomorrow. It was about, let's take the first step that validates the core thing that we're trying to do, is that can we even lend $1 to somebody who we have no idea of, who we've never seen. The only thing that we know is their receipts come to us digitally, and that's all we know about them. So I know what you're really trying to do is not to boil the ocean. You're taking very small steps to get to a core understanding of that product. So the risk is, even though the opportunity is big, the risk of failing with such a small scope is very low. So trying to do that, and you can only do that by trying to really understand what your ultimate kind of short-term goal is and what really matters. In which case, for us, can we underwrite a loan effectively? Your question about growth really ties well to the first question. Like, when a product, if you're a PM at, let's say, Facebook today, at the news feed, it has 1.7 billion users. Right? At some point, you just run out of people. So the only way to expand a product is to have more people. How do you increase like a birth rate in the world? Way to increase Facebook users or increase like internet penetration, right? So growth PMs work in environments where the product market fit is very solid, like the product is proven, and then you can grow that out and take it to more places and find more ways to surface it in the right communities. So if I were, let's say, a Facebook PM, I would totally go to villages in Africa and India and find communities, say, hey, are you using Facebook to connect with yourselves? Which is kind of what they're doing anyway. So growth PMs work in environments where a product is well established, has proven success, and then you take it to more places. Don't do it prematurely. It's cancer if you're growing a product that nobody wants to use. Great. Any more questions?
Hey Amrit, I'm Warren. From your personal experience, having moved from Kenya to the Silicon Valley, what were the challenges or the differences that you faced while breaking into the PM role? And what advice would you have for people who are switching countries, moving into the Valley? I have a personal interest here because I moved as recently as last week from Singapore, where I was working as a PM for a tech company.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the question is, what cultural differences happen when you move from? So I was born and raised in India, then moved to Kenya for a couple of years, then the US. And what is the common thread, and what is advice on shifting cultures? Yeah, the good thing is if you're bent on being or determined to be a good PM, the traits of being able to adjust countries is very similar to like building a good product. It's where you want to empathize with people and know what they value. And if you know what they value, you'll be able to understand how Indians work, and how Kenyans work, and how Nigerians work, and how somebody in Silicon Valley works. Right? So that way, it was lucky for me that kind of the job and the culture aligned. There are local idiosyncrasies everywhere. So on the job, of course, if you're building, let's say I'm building Uber for Kenya, which is Uber. There are local ways to design it, so you're really spending time. You're not going into the assumption that what worked in California will work in a place where internet can be unreliable. There is very little credit card penetration, so there is no assurance of money before booking a car, so it's all cash. So really spending time with people. When I joined first year, first 100 days as a PM here, I didn't do like new releases. It was all about kind of listening tour of people, how they work, and what are their values, and why do they care? Why does a coffee shop care about having fancy point of sale that costs them a lot of money? Turns out they want to be really professional, and that's their value system. Well, why does somebody in Kenya use digital money? Because they're afraid their cash is going to be stolen. So really spending time and not jumping to solution, that helped a lot. And that requires, I'm very ADD, I don't really like doing things, so it takes a lot of effort to say, no, I'm not going to do anything in the first 100 days at any product. Yeah. So if I would join even a new company tomorrow, I would just say not do anything for 100 days, just listen. Does that answer your question? Yes. Awesome.
All right. We have one last question here.
All right.
Hi, my question was more around solutioning. And so once you've kind of figured out what you want to build, how do you determine where to start? And then how to kind of break that down into like biteable chunks that you can then provide your team?
Right, so your question was about solution.
Yeah, so you've already done all the research,
Right,
you
okay.
already know what you want
Got
to
it.
build, but it's like a 2-year thing.
Got it.
But yeah,
Yes.
where do you start? How do you find that?
Yep. The best place to start is, again, to find out if you have a 2-year project, start with what is the most important piece in that puzzle. So let's say you're building, Uber tomorrow, and it says, hey, by engineering estimates, it would take us a year to build Uber pool from scratch, right? And some of it is like upfront costs. You can't really prevent, cost of setting up the architecture, things like that. So upfront costs discounted. What you really want to do is find out that from all the customer research that you've done already, you would have found out that in the priority of things people really value, at most they value 1 or 2 things, and everything else is kind of optional, kind of bells and whistles. So being able to cut down scope as much as possible and really limit it to, here's one thing I will do really well. So if I'm building a pool, all I want to build is I want more than one person to take a car and feel comfortable about it. That's the only thing I care about. Everything else about surge pricing or building a driver's interface to differentiate between Uber Pool and Uber X and Uber Black, or like a fancy user interface. All those are bells and whistles. What you really want to do is to understand a good framework is that the riskiest assumption test. Like, what is your riskiest assumption before you embark on a 2-year project? Find that assumption and build towards that. And what's really good about it is that you can see results immediately. You can get to an answer saying, oh, looks like it's solving the most important problem I encountered with these issues. Let's solve for that. And then you can add kind of the bells and whistles and incremental good. And kind of, again, the thesis of Agile is that it's not just about 2-week sprints, it's about finding the most important thing you can do and building that out as quickly as possible and learning as quickly as possible. That's one approach, the riskiest assumption test. The other one is you actually don't have to build anything. You can actually learn just by mocking things up in PowerPoint or Keynote and showing it to 5 people who you think will give you good feedback. So let's say, how many of you have bought Casper or Tufted Needle or any of the online mattress companies? Yeah, when they wanted to test out whether people will buy online or not, they did actually go manufacture the mattress. They took up mock-ups of the website and took it to people at Bed Bath & Beyond and stopped them outside and said, hey, what do you consider before buying a mattress online? And they basically had all the things you need. What do people value before they make a purchase of a very high value, costly purchase that their literally happiness depends on, how they sleep matters. And you can do that without spending $2,000. A prototype, whether that's in paper or it's still, there are good tools that you can do pretty good prototypes, like InVision, very cheap way to learn and push out prototype. Yeah, so 2 things. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Amrit. That was awesome.